Hi guys, Wen here, Vaping Wen. I was just taking a quick vape of my newest atomizer, and boy am I happy to get this one. Now I know that in a lot of people's minds, good atomizers cost a lot of money, but one brand of atomizers has never failed to amaze me, and that brand is the Fogger brand. Today I'm holding the Fogger V4, and this is the latest addition to the Fogger family. By its name V4, you know that this is the fourth installment. But looking back at the Fogger history, V1 to V3 have been pretty similar in terms of system. They have undergone minor changes in terms of usability. V1 had fixed air holes, V2 had adjustable air holes, V3 had a tank sleeve. So for V3, that was much more of a cosmetic update. But with the V4, you get a completely different system in here, along with a sort of overhauled look. Now, the V2 was one of my favorite atomizers of all time. It runs on a Typhoon system, and that is a bottom gravity-fed coil. You have the coil at the bottom, you have a chamber that closes up, you have the chamber top that closes down, a chimney top that closes down. And it just uses gravity to force liquid to your coil. For the V4, they have done a total overhaul per se. And the V4, simply put, is a hybrid between a Kfun Light and a Aqua tank. So with that logic, you can tell that it's a pressure-fed system, and that is capable of holding two coils, or it's a dual coil system. Just to go over the bases again, the Fogger is a 22mm atomizer, and it's sitting here nice and flush with my GP PEPs. Of course, I'm using a hybrid ring here, so you get a very nice, seamless sort of finish. And the actual material that's being used is brushed stainless steel, so that also enhances the sort of matchability with the GP PEPs. True to its name, the Fogger has always been a bitch to set up. The Fogger V2 gave me and thousands of other people a whole lot of grief, and it wasn't until I sort of discovered microcores and cotton that I actually got the Fogger V2 to work in my standards perfectly. So naturally, even though I've turned to silica for most of my atomizers, I'm going to pull out the cotton for the Fogger V4. Now, I'm not going to talk much more about this right now. I'm going to move the camera down so you can get a sort of better look at the parts that make up the Fogger V4 and how I get it set up the way I like it. Minor caveat, I'm not going to enjoy recoiling this. I got it this afternoon. I proceeded to spend about 3 hours to sort of tinker with the setup and get it to work the way I want it to. It breaks my heart to take out the coil, but for the good of everyone, for the good of the channel, I'm going to do that. Wish me luck. Alright, so I have moved the camera down to give you a closer look at the Fogger V4. And first things first, let's pull out the calipers. I'm going to measure the width of the atomizer. And as you can see, it's a 22mm atomizer. Alright, spot on 22 mils. Let me just take this drip tip off. Now, to open the atomizer, you have to first take off the top cap. And here is where you see the first difference. On the Fogger V2, there was a plate that was on the top, like this. And you used to refill by taking out this little screw here. But on the Fogger V4, as you can see, you go straight into the tank section by taking off the top cap. I was saying this is a glass tank. I won't go as far as calling it Pyrex, since Pyrex is actually a brand of glass. But it's fairly thick. Not as thick as a lot of tanks, but much thicker than what you get on a lot of, well, a lot thicker than a lot of tanks too. It's somewhere in between. It's not too thick, not too thin, and hopefully you can see it measures about 2 mils, 2 mm thick. So that's a decent sort of thickness for a tank. We put this aside too, and now we reach the actual sort of base / chamber section. As I mentioned earlier, a chimney, very similar to that on a K-Fun. And when you take this off, you can see that it's a dual coil setup, very similar to the Aqua. You have two air holes, one on top, one on the bottom, and these line up with the air holes on this AFC ring here. You have one air hole on this side and one air hole on the other side. There is another sleeve section here which you can take off, and that makes it a whole lot easier for you to work your coils on. And the AFC ring comes off too. Now I'll be doing some modifications to this part because as it is, the AFC ring is way too loose. So if you see me using some plumbing tape later, that's what it's going to be for. Now, turning it upside down, you can see there is a fill hole, very similar to the K-Fun Lite and K-Fun Lite Plus. And there's also a positive pin here which is adjustable. One thing I want to point out straight off is that there is an insulator under the positive pin, and that's really an improvement from the V2, because one of the big problems of shorting on the V2 happened at this positive pin here. And in my earlier tutorials on the website, I always recommend that you take out the pin, put in an O-ring, and put the pin back. Looks like someone has been listening. Guys over at Yilong, they have actually done this themselves now, so bravo to them for that. Okay, now to set it up, I'm just going to be using a pair of micro coils. I have sort of pre-wrapped some micro coils here. This is just some 28 gauge Kanthal on a 2mm screwdriver. I wrapped this around 10 loops. Hopefully it will give me a good enough resistance for dual coil. And this is because, as always, dual coils, they halve your resistance. So if I want 1 ohm, I need to do 2 ohm coils. Now the first part, I'm just going to wrap this around here, one leg here and one leg here, and give it a quick twist around to sort of secure it down on the base. And I'm going to do the same on this end here. That was simple enough. Now to get the other coil, put this on, and we do repeat the same process on this side. Wrap one in front, give it a quick sort of turn around, if I can get a hold of the right wire. Oops, I think it's better if I do it this way. Just move these out of the way. Okay, so I put one here, wrap that around the post so it's secure. Okay, there you go, one end on, and the other end, repeat the same process. Wrap this around the post. And there you go. If you own a Aqua, then this process will be quite similar to you, with the exception that you have some Phillips head screws here instead of the thumb screws on the positive and negative poles. Now that the coils are in, I'm just going to lock the poles down. Positive, negative. And straight off, what I do is put the screwdriver back in and sort of give some adjustments to the coils to make sure that they are straight. Got that there. And then we straighten up this one. And of course, you want the coil to be directly above the respective air holes. Okay, so we've got that done. Let's just trim off the excess wick, and I'll do that. And I will do that with my pair of clippers. Let's just clip that there, that there. Turn it around. Give that a good snip. And there, so we've got our 4 coils nicely snipped. Let's let me just take this up and give it a closer snip. We don't want these coils to be touching the chimney later, because that would let it spark up. Okay. Alright, so basically we've got our 2 coils on right now. All that's left to do is attach this to a battery mod, so we can push the coils tight together. So I have attached this to my GP PEPS mod. I'm just going to give it a quick pulse, hopefully. A quick pulse. And as the coils light up, I'm just going to press them together to get a tight micro coil. Now I've got the coils lighting up very nice and evenly on both ends. I'm just going to take this off and give it a quick ohm check. Hopefully the ohms aren't too high, and also hopefully they aren't too low, because I like to vape this on my 350 mod, and you never want to have too low of a resistance on an 18350 mod. I'll just put this on the ohm meter, turn it on, and we get somewhere between 0.7, 0.78. It's flickering 0.76, 0.78. So I'm just going to put this at 8.8 coil. Let's just round that up. So that's a decent voltage, or rather decent resistance, something which a 18350 battery can handle without any problems. I'm just going to put back the hybrid ring on and put this back onto my mod. Now the next step, the next thing that we want to do is to put the cotton in, put the wicks in. But before that, I just want to do a quick process, or rather a quick fix to the AFC, or the airflow controller, and that is this ring over here. Out of the box, the airflow control ring will be very, very loose. There's a lot, it moves a lot, or rather it moves very smoothly, and sometimes way too smooth for my comfort. So I'm just going to put some plumbing tape between here, just to tighten up sort of the play of the ring. I have to be sure. Okay, so with the plumbing tape in place, I sort of have a very tight turn now, and that's something I'm looking for. So I'm going to put back this ring on top, tighten that up, and go ahead and pull out my cotton. Now that we've got the airflow ring sort of locked down, I'm just going to thread in some cotton, and this is just some sterile cotton from a sterile cotton ball. I'm going to roll this up a bit thin and try to thread this through one end of the coil, pull it out here, and do the same for the other side. Now, as is the cardinal rule with cotton, less is always more. So if you find yourself having some trouble pulling one end of the wick through, then you probably have too much there. You always want it to be nice and loose inside the coil, but not so loose that it drops out straight away. You see there's a nice amount of play there. I'm guessing that's a bit too little. Oh boy, it's been a while since I worked with cotton. Let's try that again. Thread this in, pull this end, give it a quick turn, and voila. You notice there's a nice amount of play there, as is on this side. We don't want it too tight, but I don't want it too loose either. Okay. Now I'm just going to wet the wicks so we can sort of feed them into the channels. We have 4 channels here, 2 on each side. And I find it easier to work with wet cotton than dry cotton. Of course, it's much messier, but ultimately it makes your life much easier. Now I've wicked this. I've tried sort of putting the wicks in the channels at different lengths, and I found that it really does work best when your wicks are just barely covering the channels. You don't want the whole channel full of wick. You just want the sort of top of the channel to be closed, like that, and we will cut off the excess from those two areas. Again, with my clipper, I'm just going to clip off the excess cotton, and once I do that, you get a better sort of idea at how much cotton I'm actually using. Oh, I really need a new pair of clippers. No worries, I have my scissors here. Give that a quick snip there. And we want the cotton just to sit above the channel here. Not too deep in, not too far out. And we'll do the same for all 4 channels. Again, just covering the top. Pack that in a bit. Not too far in, not too far out. Alright, and lastly here, just want it at the top. Okay, this is a quick buzz to see the vapor production. Nice vapor production there. And now we can put on the chimney sleeve. The chimney sleeve in place. Let's give another quick buzz to see that the coils are all working. Nice vapor production there. Put the chimney top back on. And we put the bottom ring on also. This one should go on nice and tight. And as you see, there is a black O-ring here, a rather thick O-ring. This holds the bottom of the part of the glass tank in. So we have that in nice and tight. Put on the glass tank section, and then screw on the top. In the top cap, there is a nice thick O-ring there too. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but on the base of the top cap, there are some nice grooves there, which I believe do sort of help with the vapor or airflow. Now we've got it all set up. Just need to take off the bottom. Let's just clear this up a bit. I've got blue strands of cotton all over the desk. And we take off the fill screw. and we can fill up the tank with our favorite e-liquid. Now today I'm using Ocean Blue. This is a nice honeydew mint flavor, and the tank on the capacity on the Fogger V4 is rather big. I believe it's somewhere at 4.5 mils. So you do get a very good vape from here. The capacity works well with the dual coil setup, because obviously 2 coils drink up juice faster than 1 coil. Let me just give this another squeeze, fill it up, and there you go. We are full. Yank that out and just close the fill hole back. Once that's in nice and tight, we put it back on the mod, and then we move the camera back up and have a vape. Okay, so maybe it wasn't that hard to coil, but truth be told, when I did it for the first time, it was really difficult for me. It took me a long while to sort of get the wicking right. I was getting dry hits at one point, I was getting flooding at another point, and I found that the sweet spot for the wick is just covering the top of the hole, or rather the top of the channel, maybe going through a little bit, but definitely not all the way through. Another key point I found was that by raising the coils too high up, you are making the juice travel all that much further, and that could also cause some dry hits. Third thing, you definitely want to keep the coils directly above the air holes, because you know when air passes through the coils, you get more vapor. And lastly, just that quick sort of tip on how to tighten up the airflow control ring, just with some plumbing tape. Simple tips. I really hope that you find the coiling process of the V4 very simple and straightforward. I'm just going to give a quick vape. I have the air holes half open right now, not fully open, just half open. I'm going to do a mouth inhale. A very decent amount of vapor there. At the half open level, it's quite an airy draw, but if you want to do those big lung hits, definitely go for the full open. I believe it's maybe 2 mils a side, so it's very airy and very suitable for your long lung hits. Let's give that a try. Oh boy, tons and tons of vapor. Well, remember that vapor production really depends on the liquid you're using, and also the sort of resistance of the coil. The size of the air holes also helps that. But all in all, I think that the Fogger V4 is a bloody solid piece of kit. Especially for the price, 90 ringgit, you definitely can't go wrong. Compared to the V2, that gave me absolutely beautiful vapor, beautiful flavor, and I'm getting that here on the V4 as well. Beautiful flavor, a ton of vapor. I'm pretty sure that this will be suitable for both regular vapors who do mouth inhales, also for cloud chasers who do lung inhales. With this, you don't have to drill the hole any bigger. I know that some of you did drill the air holes on the V2 to be bigger. Honestly, these air holes, they are just huge. You get a very airy draw. All in all, super bang for your buck, bang for money. Please do go and pick one up. I don't know where they're selling them near you, but I just picked this up from my local vendor. Enough renting. I want to go and enjoy this more. So, Vape on, brothers. Have a good one. I'm looking forward to this.